The Auschwitz exhibit, not long ago, not far away.
Good evening and welcome. Hello to each of you for tuning in tonight for this very special presentation and a behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm George Guastello, I'm President and CEO of Union Station, and I am joined by Luis Ferreiro, Creator and Executive Director of Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, the exhibition. This exhibition was originally debuted in Madrid, Spain. I had the great pleasure to see it. Followed in New York, where I had an opportunity to see it, and now will be opening in Union Station, Kansas City on June 14th before returning to Europe. Over 56,000 tickets representing nearly 47 states have already been reserved, and I encourage you to do the same just as quickly as possible. Now, as much as you know, an exhibition of this magnitude does not happen without a large community of supporters. In our case, dozens of foundations, families, and individuals stepped up to help bring this exhibition and make it possible. Our lead supporter in this effort was, of course, Bank of America, our longtime and vitally important partner to Union Station. By the end of this conversation tonight, we hope you are inspired to join us with your personal visit and your help in sharing your feelings with family and friends. We have a tremendous and shareable content on our unionstation.org website, as well as our Union Station Facebook page. I hope you follow us and get all the information that you need to make sure you're ready to experience this magnificent exhibition. And we know you will have questions tonight, so please send them in the Facebook comments section. We'll hold them to the end for our Q&A portion of this program. Also, for the first time, we're making available this very special Auschwitz exhibition book, produced by Luis and his team of international experts that we've had the chance to work together over the last 5 weeks as we build out this magnificent exhibition. We only have 2,500 copies available. These can be claimed quickly, so if you're interested, go to unionstation.org, click on the Auschwitz, purchase your book, and join us at Union Station where you can pick up the book. And at the end of our live stream tonight, we hope you join us. And now, it is my honor to bring to you a gentleman that I've worked with for over 5 years, and we've watched this exhibition come to reality. Luis Ferreiro, with his live tonight, will share the inspiration of why he created and how he created this exhibition to bring this remarkable journey and this historic encounter to life and bring it to Union Station in Kansas City. Luis's company is Musealia, is based in Spain, with over 4 million people around the world have visited their internationally awarded exhibition since their founding. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to bring to you the creator, the brilliance behind Auschwitz, the exhibition. Luis, welcome to Kansas City, and it's great that you'll have a chance to share with our audience.
Thank you very much, George, and good evening to everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here with you and with all our viewers and to be in Kansas City, as you were saying. So basically what I wanted to do in this talk is to be able to answer the 3 most common questions that I usually get about the exhibition. That being one, why a Spanish company, why you who are not Jewish or German or Pole decided to create the exhibition, how the idea came to be. I want to also answer the second most important question. What is the exhibition and what are visitors going to encounter when they come here to Union Station? And the third question I get a lot actually is, why Kansas City and why Union Station. So hopefully by the end of these few minutes, we will be able to go through all those questions and give the answers. So basically, as we start, I just titled the talk Reasons Why, because this is basically what I thought people would be interested in being able to understand. So Musealia is our company. As George was saying, we are a Spanish company. We're based in Spain. And we were founded 20 years ago. So basically, it was my parents, my brother and I who started the company. And my father was a journalist working in the radio. So he had a radio show every morning, 6 a.m. in the morning, and it was about the fishermen, because his father and his grandfather and the father of his grandfather had been fishermen. He became a journalist. Somehow he felt he had broken the chain, and by becoming a journalist, he also wanted to somehow continue that by doing this special program for the fishermen and their needs and their problems. So that's how he got the company in a way started, because every April 14th he had a special show about Titanic, and he got to know some survivors and interview them. And when after 25 years, I think physically he became exhausted of doing this program, and somehow I think he found a similar way to continue to tell stories and to reach out people, which is by exhibitions. In a way, microphones and exhibitions are in a way similar. You get to tell a story and you get to connect people. So that's how actually we started as a company with a Titanic exhibition. It was a very small thing, basically with pictures and replicas, and we were successful, and we kept growing, and we had more visitors, and then basically we were trying to find the way we do exhibitions. And basically the way Musealia works is that we look into the world and we see things that we don't understand, but we want to understand, and we have a passion to understand. And therefore, basically, we look for the most important experts in those fields, and also with the museums that are the most important ones in that subject matter. So basically, that's how we work, and the way we create exhibitions is that for us it's very important the emotional and intellectual component, the educational value of the content that we create, and especially the experience for the visitor. And that's why all of our exhibitions come with an audio tour, and through a voice, music, and sound effect, the visitor is told a story and they navigate through a journey that hopefully will become powerful and emotionally important for them. So basically that's how we started, and in 2007 my family was touring with one of our exhibitions, and we were in Valencia in the Museum of the City of Science and Industry in Valencia, which is one of the most important museums in Spain. And my brother, who was 1 year older than I am, he suddenly died of a heart attack. So that was, of course, devastating for the family in first place. It was devastating for the company, because in a way we were like a monster of four heads, and we created together and we managed the company together. And of course, it was extremely painful. And 1 year later, just in April of 2009, for my birthday, I was given this book called Man in Search of Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And in the beginning, I didn't really want to read it. I felt it was not the moment for me to read it. But that summer, I was just one night staring at the front cover of the book, and I just read the few initial pages. And Viktor Frankl was a psychologist, a young psychologist, a brilliant mind. And he was in a crossroads, because of course, he was in Vienna, and the Nazis were coming. He knew that, and his wife was pregnant, and he had to decide whether he would stay in Vienna with his parents and put in risk the life of his wife, his future son or daughter, and himself, or leave and go into the US. He was able to get a special visa. And of course, he didn't know what to do, because that would mean to leave his parents behind and probably that would be the last time that he would see them. And just by reading the way he was expressing that situation and that crossroads, I was compelled to continue reading the book. And it's a fairly small book, thin book. It's very easy to read, and I was absolutely touched by the way he describes the experience of going through different Nazi concentration camps. And in many ways, and this book is probably known by a lot of our viewers, but he somehow is emotionally disattached from what he is describing. And he tends to basically describe psychologically the experience of somebody who is sent into the camp, especially in Auschwitz. And there were these 2 points that really got to me, which is basically that the last thing that one can lose is the way to react to anything that happens to us. So somehow, of course, in my particular situation, that was very meaningful. And just by finishing the book and reading the book, immediately I felt that something was needed to be done. And we will come back to that. But basically, for me, the book was somehow that I needed to do something. And if I had been a writer, I would have probably written a book, or if I had been in the movie industries, I would have tried to create a movie. But of course, what we did was exhibitions. So immediately after reading the book, I just had the idea to create an exhibition about Auschwitz, to tell the story in the way that he was actually intellectually explaining the experience of being sent into the camp. So I went with the idea to the 2 people that we can see here, who is my uncle, José Antonio Mújica, who is a good friend of George. Unfortunately, he cannot be here in Kansas City. And to my mother, who were the owners of the company, of Musealia. And usually that's the way we work. I bring them an idea, and I tell them, this is what I don't understand of the world, and I think we should do an exhibition about this. And it's very important because they funded the project, and they gave us the trust and the independence to create the story the way we wanted to tell it. So of course, their guidance, their support, their trust was absolutely important for me and for all the team. And of course, as I said before, the way we work is that we want to create exhibitions with the highest quality possible. And that meant not only to have our own team of historians, experts, and educators about the Holocaust and about Auschwitz, but to try to work with the most important museums in the field. So of course, and remember this is 2009, so I think I was 25, 24, or 26, something like that. The obvious thing is to try to do an exhibition with the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum. So I managed to find the email from the director, and I just write him this very passionate email about my experience and how much it meant to me to create an exhibition about Auschwitz. And he was very kind. He answered me a few weeks after, and very kindly he told me no, basically. And that is also one of the first lessons I learned from all of this experience, was that sometimes it is difficult to understand what happens to you at that moment, and you can only let time go by and then look back and try to connect the dots. And I think at that moment, the best thing that could happen to us was that he told us no. And that forced us to actually try to go and look for the team of historians, of experts, of educators that we could build the exhibition with. And we were always in touch with the museum, and we let them know how we were progressing. And that's how we found the team of historians. There was always one name that was, every time I looked in the internet, or I asked friends or museums or experts, there was always this name that was coming up to me, which was Robert Jan van Pelt. And he's known in many ways as Mr. Auschwitz. And I decided, again, as I did with the Auschwitz Museum, I just wrote an email. I found his email. He's a professor at the University of Waterloo in Canada. So I write him this email, and basically he answered within 5 minutes. It's one of the things that Robert has. He really is very efficient, and he answered immediately, and very kindly again, he said that he was willing to meet and to talk about the project. And that's how Josean and I went to Toronto. We met with him, and basically we started to build the team. And of course, we have Michael Birnbaum, who is a fantastic scholar, well known in the field. Paul Sammons, who is one of the most important educators in the field, and the person who actually worked with us so closely in being able to create the audio tour that is so important for us. And the rest of the team, Miriam Greenbaum and Jamel Senetti. And of course, we also have the internal team of Musealia. And these people actually, for me, the story of creating Auschwitz is of course very painful because it goes back to what happened to my brother, but at the same time, it's a story full of gratitude. I can only be grateful to all the people who I have knocked on the door, also people and institutions, but especially these individuals who I explained them our vision, what we wanted to create, and they brought all their knowledge into the exhibition to make sure that it would have the most accurate information and to create the narrative with us. So all of them are for me very special people. And of course, the internal team of Musealia. I have only a few minutes, so I cannot name everybody, but certainly Iciar Palacios, Ana Galán, Roberto Sancho, Ana Biederman, we will fill them on now, but they all are essential to the success of our company and the exhibition. And as I was explaining, of course, we kept being in touch with the museum in Poland. And this is also one person who is very important in this story, which is Pavel Sawicki. And he is the special liaison of the project, so the coordinator on behalf of the museum. And I still remember when, after many, many conversations and years, he sent me an email, and I was just about to board a plane where he told me that the museum was actually thinking that it would be good for them to be part of this project. So I can, again, only be grateful to him and to the entire crew of the museum. The director, Piotr Siwinski, he had the vision, the leadership, and he was brave enough to take the risk of creating the exhibition with us. It's the first time ever that the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum creates an exhibition together with a company and provides more than 400 original artifacts from their collection. So this is in many ways unprecedented for them, and it was actually his vision to be able to understand that even though they have 2 million people going to Poland every year to visit the museum, so many more million people were not able to go there. So to take Auschwitz to the world, it's something that they understood, and they helped us so much, and now they are the co-producers and creators of the exhibition. So that's a little bit of how it came, that Spanish company that I had the idea to create the exhibition. And the second block, we want to speak about the exhibition itself. So how do we explain the story of Auschwitz? We're going to see now a video that will give us a glimpse of what the exhibition is, and then we will try to explain how do we deal with the narrative.
del rastre en Europa.
Okay, so basically that is a small glimpse of the exhibition, and basically how do we tell this story? So anybody that wants to understand Auschwitz and wants to understand the Holocaust, first of all, it needs time and it needs space. So this is a large exhibition because the subject matter requires so. And we do it through an audio tour because we think it's the most accessible way to deal with very complex issues. So as you see, the exhibition has different hierarchies. So of course, in terms of what are the components, what are we going to see in the exhibition? We have the artifacts, we have images, we have the text, we have videos, which are very important because they provide for us the testimonies of these survivors. And we have, of course, models and replicas of certain items. And the narrative needs to deal with, as I was saying, very, very complex issues. And the way we basically try to do it is by being this an exhibition driven by artifacts. So the artifacts for us are key. More than 700 original artifacts are going to be able to be seen in the exhibition, and we try to find artifacts from all different kinds of levels. So of course here, and that's why the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum is so important, they provide most of the artifacts that we show, and especially those that comes from the victims, and those which are in many ways iconic because they represent the mass. So we see here, of course, it's very interesting, this is Paul Salmon's. We spent many, many days in Auschwitz trying to make the selection of the artifacts, what we were going to display. And here you will see items that then you will come and be able to see in the exhibit that represent the mass. Because of course in Auschwitz we're dealing with more than 1 million people who were victims in this camp. And we have the brushes, we have of course iconic posters and posts from the camp, which represent in many ways, I was working with a survivor in Madrid, and when he came to this point, he said that for him it was, in a way, mixed emotions when he saw the post, because they marked the border of the camp. So well, hell started for him, but also he knew that for many of his colleagues, inmates, the last thing you could do if you could not bear the situation any longer was to go at night into the post, into the barbed wire, and just committing suicide by touching the barbed wire. So it was also a way to finally be liberated of the camp by giving your life. We have artifacts from the victims, of course, the most important thing. This is the most important thing that the exhibition becomes is a tribute to the memory of the victims. But we also need to deal with the perpetrators. The most terrifying part of this story and of the exhibition is realizing that the perpetrators were not coming from Mars. They were neighbors of their victims. They were humans that were supposed to be normal, that were moved by an ideology of hatred to think that another person, to dehumanize another person because of the way they thought, they believed, or in the God they prayed to. So of course we have artifacts from the perpetrators that allow us to speak about the psychology of these people and how a democracy can turn into a dictatorship and can turn into genocide. For us it's very important that visitors understand that genocide is always a social act. It's never the craziness of one person or a group of persons. It cannot happen without the vast complicity, active or passive, of the majority of the society. And it's also very important for us, and we have here Pavel Sawicki and Ella Kasser, another very important person, heads of collection in the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum. For us, as I was saying, we have 700 original artifacts in this exhibition. To be able to display each one of them, it's really very difficult because of the security that we need, because of the process of conservation, because of the historical significance of these artifacts. These are literally fragments of history. These are evidence of what happened in Auschwitz. And to have them from Poland to Kansas City, it takes a lot of work, and as you see here, a lot of paperwork also. So the object, of course, as I was saying, also we need to have other museums involved, because something that is very important for us in the exhibition is not only to explain the story of Auschwitz, or better, to say it in a better way, to understand Auschwitz, you need to actually leave the camp itself and be able to go back in time to understand what happened centuries ago in terms of anti-Semitism and how this hatred was becoming more and more real. And in the case of Germany, of course, what happens between the First World War and the Second World War. So, of course, we went out to many different museums, from Yad Vashem in Israel to USHMM in DC, to Sachsenhausen in Germany, to the Jewish Museum in London, to be able to find those artifacts that could bring us the real story of Auschwitz. So that's, for us, also something very important, to understand the road to Auschwitz. This is one of the largest. We have very large artifacts and we have very small artifacts. This is one of the largest, which is the wagon that actually right now it's already displayed here outside in Union Station. But this is how it was. So again, to see an artifact in an exhibition, it has been years of work, and the way that it has been restored, as you see from its original state, has been one of the most complex things that we have done. We also have one of the largest elements inside the exhibit is a section of an original barrack from Auschwitz III, from Monowitz. This was the camp where Primo Levi, for instance, once. Most of the inmates that were working for E.G. Farben, this huge complex built near Auschwitz, were in Auschwitz III in Monowitz. So this is how we found the barrack in Monowitz, and with the help of the museum in Poland, we managed to acquire the barrack, and this is the process of how we actually dismantled the barrack in its original site, and then it was preserved by the conservators at the museum in Poland, and this is finally the way we display it. So it's a very long process that is very expensive and that takes a lot of efforts. And of course, here we have all the list of museums that are helping us to explain the story of Auschwitz from all over the world. This is Anna Galan, for instance, who deals with our collections manager and a key member of the exhibition. And in terms of the narrative, I probably believe that some of our viewers have been already to Auschwitz. So why an exhibition about Auschwitz? If I have been to Auschwitz, is it very different to visit this exhibition? And the answer is yes. When you go to Auschwitz, the place itself has such a gravity that it's very difficult to actually move away physically from the site. But again, to understand Auschwitz, you need to go beyond the physical site. You need to understand what happened before and in places very far away from the camp itself. So this is the good thing about our exhibition, is that we can actually zoom out from the camp itself. We still have the fragments, the original artifacts, but we can go to what happens in Germany or in Poland or in France at the same time that Auschwitz is being planned and constructed. And basically, the exhibit has 4 different sections. We start with an introduction, which is basically trying to place the visitor in the same position of the Soviet soldiers that liberated the camp. When they arrived in Auschwitz, January 27th, 1945, those soldiers, they looked into the camp, they saw things that were terrible, they understood that something terrible had happened there, but they just didn't understand what had happened. And this is a little bit how we start. We start by the end. We start with the liberation, with January 27th, 1945, and we present the key actors of this story. So we have artifacts related to the victims. We have an artifact related to the perpetrators. We have an artifact linked to the bystanders and the liberators. So we present the basic actors of this story. And then we have for us, one of the most important sections, which is the before Auschwitz, to understand the road of hatred and indifference that made possible the existence of the camp. The central section, of course, is Auschwitz and what happened to those that were exterminated in the camp and those that were considered to be able to work and therefore registered into the camp. And then finally we have the section that we called After Auschwitz, which is to understand why the camp, the story of the camp is important for us today. So we start with, we have we start with a flashback, but with a twist. And for us, this was also important because we hoped to get the attention of visitors with introduction. And if you see something, again, the same way we create exhibitions, you see something, you don't understand it, but you want to. And that's how the exhibition is going to unfold very different and complex topics. It's a very emotional exhibition in many ways, but for us it's very important to understand that actually with Auschwitz it's sometimes easier to make people cry, but our goal is to make people think, to reflect, to understand the underlying principles that made possible the Holocaust. That is for us the most important thing. So we have to very carefully balance emotion with intellectual components. And we don't have time here, of course, but this is 2 examples of emotional and intellectual artifacts. We have a shoe with a sock inside, and of course we don't know who was the owner of the shoe. If we look into it, we can clearly see that it's probably a boy between 3, 4, 5 years old that, again, in all likelihood, was sent to Auschwitz in the spring of '44 in the Hungarian action. And we know, of course, that the sock is there because he was told by Sonderkommando, by the Nazis, to basically undress and leave his belongings ordered and tidied so that after the shower, he would be able to pick them up again. So again, it allows us to speak about hope and how in some cases, in many cases, hope was what led the victims into the heart of the gas chambers without thinking that another human being would be able to do what they were about to be done with them. So of course, for us it's very important the museography and how we basically deal with the elements in the exhibition. Here we have one of the most important parts of the exhibition, which is for us the nation of Cambridge, as we call it, and how Nazi Germany was able to become complicit in such a genocide. Anja Biedermann, who is our architect and designer, who worked countless hours to make this exhibition happen. And finally we come to where we are today, which is Kansas City. And I might be running out of time, but for us it's also very important to explain why we are in Union Station in Kansas City, because we get this question a lot. And the short answer is that we are here because in 2015, when the exhibition was just a rough idea and we only had the vision, but there was actually nothing else, we went to Atlanta to a museum conference where we basically, different companies and museums were introducing their ideas for exhibitions. And of course, on the other side, there were many potential hosting museums and promoters who would listen to whatever museums and companies had to say. So I had basically 2 minutes to explain the concept of the exhibition of Auschwitz and what we wanted to create. And immediately after I finished my 2-minute presentation, the gentleman I have here to my right and Jerry Baver came to me and you said, we want to bring this story to our community. We are from Union Station in Kansas City, and we believe that this is the story we need to tell. And for us, it's very important to be able to work with people that are, what we call in Spanish, good people, and people who put their hearts into what they are doing. And we felt immediately that there was this connection with George and with Jerry, and from then we have been working, as you say, for years in trying to get the exhibition come to Union Station. And these are pictures of this process. We had to come, of course, many times. We came with the people from the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum. I have to say that not every museum or venue in the world can handle this exhibition. We require, because of the display of original artifacts, we require high levels of security, of temperature control, humidity control, and the ability of a team to be able to run the exhibition. So for us, of course, it was very important to partner with people that we felt very comfortable, and from the very beginning, we felt that was the case. And here you can see George explaining to our friends from Poland how technically the venue was working. So we spent, of course, I think it was a couple of days going over the venue, trying to, they were looking into all kinds of situations and how was the best way to make the exhibition fit into the venue. And then we started working. And again, this was months and months of work. And for the past 1.5 years, as we all know, we had to do it basically through a pandemic, which made things much more complicated because we could not come here to see many things. And we started basically trying to fit the exhibition. And remember, we usually say that in many ways, this is not an exhibition, this is a museum. And this is a large experience. And in Madrid, we had more space, in New York a little bit more, and here we were trying to find exactly the best way to tell the story. And we went through different options, different plans, until the end we found the best way to make, to build the exhibition and to tell the narrative, which is, for instance, what we are seeing right now. And then finally, we had the artifacts arrive a few weeks ago, again with very tight security, special transportation from New York to Kansas City. We had couriers from the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum driving behind the special security track all through the country to the heart of America to be able to bring the artifact safely. And also a few weeks ago, we started with installation. So the first thing that we did was to install the posts that I spoke just a few minutes before, which are so iconic and which represent so much. If Auschwitz is in many ways a symbol for the Holocaust, then the posts, we can easily say, that are a symbol for Auschwitz and for the universe of concentration camps. So these were, symbolically enough, were the first artifacts to be placed in the exhibition. Here we have, again, part of my team in Musealia, Ana Galán and Roberto Sancho, who have worked so very hard and who are so proud to be here in Union Station. We have here all the team from Union Station placing the wagon, which was for us a very emotional day. It was, I didn't know, but just to, again, linking dots from the present to the past. When I woke that morning, I just realized that it was May 21st, and that would have been the birthday of my brother. So I just looked from the window and I just said, brother, help me, help us, make it work well. And it was a very emotional day. We had 2 survivors coming, and we really felt that having this wagon here at Union Station, which is again so linked into this story by the First World War, by soldiers leaving to Europe, but also with the museum you have here just in front, but also survivors arriving to the heart of America through this place. So I don't think we will find many places where it's more significant to have the wagon than where it is right now, as you can see. And we took hundreds of pictures because for us it was a very emotional and special day. And it's only George and me here, but for us it's very important to tell the people and our viewers that this is, as I said before, it's a story of gratitude, a story of pain, and we also have to be gratitude to the entire team, in this case of Musealia, of the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum, and since I am here, to all the team that George has at the Union Station. I cannot name them all, but Michael Creed, Lauren, Dalton, Nick, Dwayne, Jerry, all of them are being so supportive, and we feel so comfortable working with them and sharing this story hands with them, that it's really special and an honor for us to be here. And I will just finish. I don't want to do a spoiler, so I don't want to explain how we end the exhibition. I think that you all deserve, hopefully, the chance to come and see it by yourself. But I would just try to say that what we do with the end of the exhibition is the way I started this small talk. I read a book, I was touched by it, I decided to do something. The way we finish the exhibition is hopefully sending this message that we are alive and we can do something to make the world better. And with that, George, I turn it back to you, and I again want to show our gratitude for welcoming us to Kansas City and to Union Station.
It's an honor to have you on the stage. It's an honor to have you at Union Station. And I think about it, and you make it so clear. One individual can make a complete difference in the world. And I think back and I say to myself, you were born 40 years after the liberation of the camp. When you were born 30 years later, 30 some odd years later, we're right here. And you're affecting the lives of children and families to tell the story. So all those people that perished, all those people are fighting to tell the story. They're telling it through you and through your eyes and through your emotional connection. That's what's really special about this exhibition. It is a piece of you. It's a story that people may not know and people may know, but they'll never know the story through your eyes. And after this exhibition, they'll see the Holocaust in a completely different venue. And it's an honor to have you here, and you're so kind and you're quite brilliant. So we're going to turn our attention to our audience. We want them to interact and ask some questions on Facebook. Put your questions out on Facebook. We received many of them, and we'll just talk to you. We'll have a little conversation. But remember, share this evening with other individuals and friends. We'll rebroadcast. We want you to be part of it. But let's talk to the audiences right now. You ready?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Sarah asks, Sarah, thank you. Can you talk about the emotional experience you expect guests to have? I imagine it's going to be quite painful and sad.
Yes, as I said, of course, this is a very tragic, complex, difficult story. Each person that comes to the exhibition, I have to say, deserves our respect because they are deciding to go into a story, to be faced with a story that is not easy. So for us, it's very special. And I think that each one of us has its own backpack. And to be confronted with these artifacts, which are unique, each one of them has its own historical echo, and each one of them will establish a very personal and individual conversation with the visitor. So I think what I said, I was touched. I just hope that in some way the exhibition is able to touch gently and shake the conscience of people. And how it will be and how you will be touched is very difficult to say. Each one of us reacts in a different way. And it might be just when you visit the exhibit, it might be the day after, it might be 1 month after you visit the exhibition. But what we always, the feedback that we have is that we have a lot of emails coming from people, visitors from Madrid, from New York, I'm sure now from Kansas City, explaining us how visiting the exhibition has touched them in different ways. So it's very difficult to say how, but I think it's quite easy to say that it will affect people.
It would be easy to make a horrific story horrific when you walk through. You take guests on an emotional journey, and every time you see that artifact that tells the story, you see that artifact through the eyes of those perpetrators, or you see those artifacts through the eyes of the victims. That's what it is. And I look at each artifact and I say to myself, Luis personally picked each artifact to tell the story. So when you experience the exhibition, know that you're experiencing emotion and you're reliving the lives of individuals and their emotion and their true spirit. I'm not going to give away the ending. The ending truly is something of a masterpiece. And I will say to you, you are Steven Spielberg of the exhibition. It's that good. Let's ask another question. Chelsea asks, have you had any visitors who are unable to handle the emotions of the exhibit? And what is the minimum age do you recommend?
We've had some people that, you can, and even though we don't want people, we don't try to make people cry in the exhibition, but of course the stories that we tell are very emotional. Some people, when they go through certain parts of the exhibition, they prefer to walk a little bit faster. For instance, we deal with the situation of the children, and this is very tough. 200,000 children were killed in Auschwitz. I still remember we have a showcase with a sweater, and when Paul Sammons, in this case, and myself, we were selecting that particular item, there was these initials, DA, if I'm not mistaken, and this was years ago, and we just tried to set this kind of goal of, can we find the name of this boy or girl? And unfortunately, we have not been able. And every time I still walk through that corridor and I go past that showcase and I look at that sweater, I still, it still hits me and I get emotional because actually you understand that was the difference with this genocide, with the Holocaust, is the Nazis wanted to go beyond the actual fact of killing, of taking the life. They wanted to erase memory. And that is the only thing, that sweater is the only thing on earth that has survived from that child. So there are parts of the exhibition which are tough to deal for anybody, even for us. When we were working in the exhibition with Robert, I remember many, and with Miriam, many afternoons where we were we just had, we had to stop because it was actually too difficult. But at the same time, again, we deal with it in an intellectual way because what we want is people to understand the underlying principles and the ingredients. Therefore, to be able to identify when certain societies go in the wrong way and we are able to stand up. And minimum age, I think we follow the same recommendation as the museum in Poland, so that's 12 and above. It's a very personal thing. So again, both in Madrid and in New York, we have seen parents coming and then they make the decision if they want to come back with their children if they're below 12 or just a little bit over 12. In some cases they do, but I think it's a very difficult subject even for adults. So certainly I personally would not recommend children below that age in the exhibition, but you may add.
I would agree with you. If a child is more mature with an adult parent to be able to discuss it, we'll have an education guide for families within our On Track magazine to help families get ready to talk to their children about it. When I talk about emotion, I think emotion is important. I think it was a good question. But about emotion, that means that we're alive. Our brains are working, and when you do it, when I first had the opportunity to sit down with you in Portugal, and you shared a charrette on a computer screen, just right there saying this is what it was, I started breaking down there. I couldn't handle what I was experiencing. And I usually come in very critical. I've got my pen and I'm ready to go. And then when we went to Madrid, I spent almost 4 hours just by myself. Well, you weren't with us. Before I had my pen, I was ready to give you all the comments. And I got done with the 4 hours and I didn't have any comments. I didn't say this text is too small. We've got to do this. And then we went back the next day with you for another 3 hours. So this exhibition really evokes emotion, but the right emotion. And it makes you, it lifts you up to make a difference in our world. And I think that's what's so important. To have it in Kansas City at this time, at this place, at this moment, it is divine intervention. And this is something that communities want, our community wants. We have another question. Is it Robert? Yeah, Robert. Robert, you ask, I've been to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. Fabulous museum, wonderful experience. But what should we expect that's different? Very good question, Robert.
Very good question, and the story is different, the narrative is different. First of all, not everything that happens in Auschwitz is the Holocaust. And certainly not all the Holocaust is what happens in Auschwitz. So in the case of Auschwitz, we have to understand that it was not built as a camp, specifically initially to exterminate the Jewish population. It was a camp that was built to terrorize the Polish civil society. So we deal with the other groups of victims, the Poles, Jehovah's Witnesses, Soviet prisoners of war, homosexuals, asocials, considered asocials by the Nazis. So it's a different story because Auschwitz is not just about the Holocaust. But of course, 90% of the victims in Auschwitz were Jewish. And we work with the USHMM in Washington. We have artifacts from them. And I would say that we have, it's following a little bit what you were saying about movies. I mean, it might be a similar topic, certainly, because this is also an Holocaust exhibition, but not just an Holocaust exhibition, but the way we explain the story is different because this is an Auschwitz exhibition and we need to focus in the story of Auschwitz and what made possible the existence of the camp.
Well, that was a good question. I've been to the Holocaust Museum and I will tell you, I tell our audiences, when you come here, you're going to see artifacts that have never been at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And I promise you, the way Luis ends this exhibition is something that you must experience. It uplifts you and it takes you, and you're a great storyteller. As you walk through this exhibition, you start to play a movie in your mind. Every artifact plays a movie in your mind and it replaces and it continues on in your mind so that it becomes part of you. So that was a really good question. Let's have another question. I think it's Sandra asks, I heard there will be fence posts from the camp. How are those transported carefully to keep them preserved? You talked a little bit about it, and front page of the Kansas City Star, how many men did it take you? But there's also another story about how those posts were manufactured and created that I think is very important for our audience to understand.
Yes, I mean, of course, everything that has to do with the transportation and placement of original artifacts is very delicate. You know very well that we have a team coming specifically from Poland, from the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum, to be able to place these artifacts. And the system and these are, I think in meters. I come from Europe, so these are more than 3 meters. I don't know how that translates.
Really big.
Feet,
really
very,
big.
Very large and heavy artifacts.
Yes.
So it's not easy actually to find even the system to display them in a way that it's safe. But again, there was a special security transportation. The museum in Poland only works with one company in the world. They only trust one company, Polish company, to do the transportation of the artifacts. So they come all the way from Poland. They were in New York with us, packing the exhibition, transported in a very secure way to here to Kansas City. We have to wait when they come. They have to open the box, wait 24 hours so that the temperature balance and they are acclimatized to the new situation here in Kansas City, and then it's when they are placed. So it's a very delicate, complex situation and operation.
They're concrete posts, but they're artifacts that mean so much. I was taken aback, and for those that will follow us on social media, there was a husband and wife team that transported the rail car in front. And they transported all the way from New York to here. And they paused and came to you and said, this is the most important thing we have ever transported. This is the most important artifact that we think we've ever been experiencing. And they were so honored to be able to carry something across the United States to Truman's home to tell a story. It really moved me to watch and hear and see them do that.
Yeah, it's so powerful to see how the story touches people, and you constantly.
And they weren't Jewish. I mean, just to point, this really resonated with them, and I think that's important about this exhibition. Yeah. This exhibition has something for everyone to learn. I mean, when you have the opportunity to learn about Maximilian Kolbe. Saint Maximilian Kolbe in this exhibition, and you learn, so those of the Catholic faith can come and understand and appreciate what happened.
Yeah, in the end, at the core of the Nazi ideology was this rejection and hatred to those who were different, to diversity in general. So of course this exhibition talks about inclusion and about we are all one single, I mean we are all connected, we all share this planet and the air that we breathe, and so it's a very, as you always say, it's a very well-timed exhibition for the times that we are living.
Yeah, and it talks about diversity and inclusion and what happens when diversity and inclusion does not happen, and what the worst-case scenario can be. I think I have a question from Chelsea. She asks, how hard was it to put this exhibition together while remaining respectful to the survivors, the victims, but not belittling the amount of cruelty? That's a very good question.
Yes, so from the very first moment, of course, as again, I mean, we worked with the most important historians, experts, educators in the subject matter. And we wanted to make sure that the way we told the story was respectful. And we had many survivors coming to the exhibition. We were in touch with many before to explain them how we wanted to tell the story and the narrative and even the artifacts that we were going to display. And it's very interesting because I had to walk many survivors through the exhibition, and you feel very stupid, because how do you tell somebody who has been in Auschwitz what you are displaying? And I came to the conclusion that, first of all, we don't display pictures which are visually inappropriate. Right. So there's nothing in the exhibition that visually is going to make one close her eyes. And second, the victims, the survivors, they have an experience that we will never be able to get nearby. This exhibition is not about trying to replicate what they went through, because that would be intellectually immoral to even try it. So it's not about that. It's actually to understand Auschwitz was made and the Holocaust was made by man. Therefore, Primo Levi used to say, if understanding is impossible, remembering is a necessity. But we have the view that this was done by men to men, and therefore you have to understand, not justify, but understand what took a society to decide to kill part of its own people. So it is important to understand how that can happen. So it's, I think the exhibition is full of respect. Mm-hmm. And
reverence. And I will share that with our audience. When we brought the transportation car here, we were struggling to have the survivors, and what was that going to be like? What should we do? We doing an unveiling, and I remember going up to Sonia and then Elizabeth, and just holding their hands and not knowing what to say, but they said it to us. And then to talk about the reverence, I saw you go to one of the survivors and kneel in front of them, hold their hand and ask them a question. That's all it needs to say. How you are respectful and reverent of the survivors is very authentic, and I saw it one-on-one. And then for them to be able to open up and say, this is my mission on earth. I'm here to tell the story, and I want everyone to know this story, and this is the time, this is the place, and thank you. It's a really good question. Pamela asks, how and why did you choose Auschwitz over any other camp?
Well, first of all, it's because Viktor Frankl. So even though he was sent into different camps, he spent most of his time in Auschwitz. So in his book, he basically explains the story of his imprisonment in Auschwitz. And even beyond the book itself, of course, if you want to explain one particular story, symbols are important. And Auschwitz becomes a symbol for the Holocaust and for what humans are able to do to other humans when basically they are full of hatred. So in a way, Auschwitz is able to speak to so many different topics. So I'm also very interested in Treblinka, in Sobibor, and these are aspects that we actually explain in the exhibition, or the Eisengruppen, the Holocaust by the bullets. This is a very important part of the Holocaust. And we explain this in the exhibition. But somehow Auschwitz becomes iconic because it has the three elements of the Nazi concentration camp universe. It's a slave labor camp. You have E.G. Farben, you have Monowitz, you have working squads. You have properly the concentration camp for political prisoners, for what were considered to be enemies of the state. And you have the extermination camp. So in Auschwitz is unique also because it's the largest and it has these three elements. So it becomes a very good point to start understanding the story of the Holocaust.
Well, I think as you walk through the exhibition and you learn, you teach people about how this came to rising. You learn about the people. We learn about the Romas. We learn all about that. But when you think of Hitler and his final solution, and this camp was the most ultra-industrialized camp of murder. But you tell the story about all the people. It's about the people and about the Holocaust, not about the place, and not about the industrialization. We have another question out there. Carla asks, I'm curious if you have skeptics come to the exhibition who've ended up changing their minds afterwards. Good question, especially in our community when we've had such tragedy for those that hate others.
If we understand skeptics by deniers,
I think so.
I don't believe. I mean, there's only two reasons, two justifications to be a denier. One, you know that what you're saying is not true, but for political reasons, you claim that it's false. Or two, you don't have the proper education, and you are guilty because the information, the evidence is available. And therefore, it should not be. It should just be a matter of minutes to understand that the Holocaust it's a historical fact. So we don't. I don't think we have encountered any of those comments of somebody coming to us telling that. What we do have actually is relatives of perpetrators coming. The relative of Rudolf Hoss, who was the commandant of the camp, came to Madrid. And he is very involved in peace organizations, and he was there, and we had a very nice talk through the exhibition, and he was actually very, very happy that an exhibition like this was placed, even though of course we have to explain what his grandfather's role was in Auschwitz. So that's the only thing which is very interesting. Because of course nobody's guilty of what your grandfather or father or parents have done, but that's the only thing that might be similar to what the question was about.
But I also think people learn.
Yeah.
We have many youth, and some of the current statistics show that young kids don't even know the story or even understand the story. So if you consider that a skeptic, we're going to be bringing students from all over the Midwest and from underserved communities to tell them the story. Once we tell the story, they can tell the story again to others and ensure that it never happens again.
If you speak to a witness, you become a witness.
Right.
And in a way, the exhibition, in a situation where, of course, unfortunately we have less and less survivors, the exhibition becomes a voice by itself and a witness. So hopefully all these people that come to the exhibit will become also a witness to a witness.
A good question. Let's see, we have a question from Cheryl. Cheryl asks, how many survivors did you interview while creating this exhibition?
Out of my mind, I don't have the number, but of course this was done through the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum, so they have a very good network of survivors, and our own historians, of course. For instance, in the case of Miriam Greenbaum, who was one of our curators, she is the daughter of a survivor, Auschwitz survivor, for instance. So of course, I don't know the exact number, but certainly probably around 20 of different kind of nationalities and backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Well, we work closely with the Midwest Center for Holocaust Education. Without them, we wouldn't be at this point. But they have a connection to the survivor groups in Kansas City, and there are over 300 the survivors that are still in this community that tell witness to the story. So there's an opportunity for us to do that. And KCPT will be doing a special in a few weeks, and I hope you don't miss it. It's a story on Kansas City survivors and our connection, our unique connection to Truman, who created the Jewish state, who ended the war. But they came to Kansas City because this was Truman's place. Imagine coming from Poland and coming to Kansas City with nothing in your pockets, but you know that you'll feel safe, secure, and a community that would wrap you in love and give you an opportunity to survive. So that's a really good question. Chris asks, do you have anything from Anne Frank's diary in the exhibition? I've always wanted to go to her museum, and you didn't even give me tickets there when I was in Amsterdam.
I mean, so they form part of the project, and the Anne Frank House is a very special partner to us. Because of the pandemic, unfortunately, we don't have original artifacts from the Anne Frank Museum. They are sending us very important replicas, but we have the story in what we call the in hiding part of the exhibition. So of course, we deal with the story of Anne Frank, but it's also important for us to, in this case, explain other stories that are maybe less known, less iconic in the case of people that were in hiding, but that are also very interesting. But Anne Frank is included in the exhibition, and the story, you will actually be able to read things that I think are not so well known about her time in hiding.
Well, I think in today's world, we're seeing more and more recreations, but the artifacts are not allowed to come out. It's how you create the recreation, but more importantly, how you tell the story behind the recreation of that artifact. And we've had that experience. You know, Nelson Museum of Art was created first with no original pieces, all recreations. So I think this gives us an opportunity to tell that rich story and learn from that. Chelsea asks, do you plan to bring the exhibition to additional U.S. cities in the future?
So of course, because of the pandemic, all plans have been changed. And what I would say is that because I cannot give you a yes right now, this is right now the only chance we have.
So it's a no. Okay, so you better come to Kansas City and buy your tickets now.
So right now, come to the heart of America in Kansas City, and I hope in the future we can come back. I hope so. But at this point, there is no certainty about that, and so take advantage of the opportunity. That's
I'm
what I would
confident
say.
this exhibition will not be in a train station where survivors walked or
Certainly.
where troops left.
Certainly.
This is the place where you'll walk and experience something that you can't expect anywhere in the world. Nada asks, can you talk about the security you will have in place at Union Station? That's a very good question if you'd like to talk about it, because you held me to it. We have spent a significant amount of time and effort and energy and donor dollars to ensure that we have outstanding security. I will remind our guests that will be coming, we have security stations that you'll have to walk through, no bags, no things that you can actually bring into the exhibition. So we're taking this very seriously. And so know that when you come to Union Station, it may be a little bit different than what you've done in the past, but we're working with security individuals, we're working with the Jewish community and experts in the field, with Homeland Security, with the Kansas City Police, and we're going to do the best to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to experience Luis's story in the safest, most emotional experience possible. Well, it looks like we're running out of time. I hope our audiences have enjoyed this experience and a glimpse into your brilliance. And I encourage you, please, come see this exhibition. We on our board and all of our sponsors, and most importantly our staff, take great responsibility and pride that this exhibition is here in Kansas City. And we've done some very significant exhibitions, but this one is at the right place, the right time, and the right heart for our community to learn and really make a difference in the lives of human beings. Thank you, Luis, and your entire team. You're a small team, but a mighty team, and you've been here already 3 weeks, and every single day I'm here, you're in that gallery looking at every artifact, looking at every wording, and ensuring that your handprint is on each piece, and it shows. It's been a remarkable 5 years and a rewarding experience, and I'm lucky to be able to say I know you, and I'm lucky to say that for divine intervention, you came into our lives and are making a difference, and that means an awful lot to all of us. It's been a journey, and one that we're very grateful for.
Thank you.
And you're a great. Some things else will be coming our way, and I hope that we will be able to work again when we see that. When I can't wait to see what we'll do again. A special thank you for each of you joining us online tonight. We're really honored that you gave your time to learn. As I wrap up, I want to give a final invitation for all of you to become a member of Union Station. We've put together many things, and we really need members to be an important part of carrying on this exhibition. And one of the things members will be able to get is this unique On Track magazine that they're getting right now. But everyone will get it thanks to Blue Cross Blue Shield. So when you come to this exhibition, you will have your own commemorative program book at no cost to take back and to tell the story that Luis is so well told in this exhibition. And also I'd ask you, if you haven't had a chance, the limited edition, I feel like I'm on KCPT. This limited edition book, there's only 2,600 of them. You can buy it right now online at Union Station. And remember, all the funds that are stay right here in Union Station in Kansas City to allow us to continue to tell the stories that we've told over the last 105 years, and we plan to tell for the next 100 years. The eyes of the world will be upon us. Everyone in the world will be looking at Union Station, your home, the visual voice of our community, on June 14th. We want each of you to be a part of that exhibition. We want Luis's story to be in your soul and to tell that story to everyone that you come in contact with. Now, we leave you with a very special performance by Colleen Deeker. Colleen will be performing a piece in our Grand Plaza, which has welcomed literally millions of people since Union Station first opened in 1914. Immigrants, everyone was welcomed. And importantly, among those were the arriving for the first time were in fact the survivors from the Holocaust, relocating at the end of World War II to settle in our community and make a significant difference. Just imagine the range of emotions they must have felt when they got off the train, walked in that grand hall, and looked up at America, and looking at freedom and looking at an opportunity that they can make a difference. It's our responsibility to tell their story. And ladies and gentlemen, now listen to Colleen as she plays music from Schindler's List, performed in our Grand Plaza for you tonight. Enjoy, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at Union Station as we make a difference in Kansas City. Thank you.